Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful August the 20th, 2020. Ground of the Puertes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, we're living a life of wetness down here in the southeast. We got rain coming every day, seems like. I don't even have to waste water on watering my lawn. There's no waste when you say thank you to our frontline healthcare workers, Charlton, our nurses, doctors, first responders for the wonderful job that they do every day in America.
Yeah, they are doing a great job. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars also all around the world. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be looking at a still picture. Man, I'm doing the pause, Big C. I'm doing the pause because it's so smoky in California, you can almost like taste the air. But I'll never pause on the Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, it's important to me just like it's unimportant to the president to care about the veterans in this country. Since he dodged the armed services back in the 60s, he's dodging caring for our veterans in America, Charlton, in 2020.
Yeah.
And ever since his presidency has evolved. You think about a guy who was not ready for the job, how big that this job is. It's not doing a business deal, Charlton. It's servicing a country. And the veterans are the reason why you want to service this country.
Yeah.
Because they have given us our sovereignty, our safety, Charlton, over the decades of service that they have provided in supporting this country, Charlton, and our administration will not support them. We lose some 22 veterans a day to suicide.
Wow.
We've never had the White House address this issue in America, Charlton.
No.
As much as the president wants to say that he cares about the veterans, but he has no plan in place to take care and support the veterans, just like he has no plan in place for COVID-19. So it's up to the American citizens to provide the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number for these veterans, Charlton. Many of them are hungry and destitute and homeless, and the president doesn't care. So we give out this number, Charlton, hoping to get the veterans off the street and get them some mental help.
Yeah, they could really use the help. A lot of people can use the help now. California's been burning, but you can still call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can get some help. Also, very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants, and the Say Hey Kid. When you reach out to them, just tell them Big C sent you. The goal is simple: recruit 100 real estate brokers, put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's does it, car dealerships do it, sports teams do it, and you can watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and you can learn about opportunities there. Really happy with all the growth that's starting to happen with Big C Sports and also other avenues that we're dealing with. Big C, I want to get into, number one, California's burning. And I know you say it's always raining in the South, and I know people can only do so much. It's almost like every year in California we have a forest fire are wildfires, and I wonder how they even dealt with it before they had fire departments that are as functional as they are today. It says California wildfires have doubled in size over the last week, Big C, and temperatures throughout most of California is over 100 degrees, and I hope that people will really heed the way to get some help, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, probably the way they dealt with it years ago is that we didn't have the climate change that we've had over the past couple of decades in America, Charlton. We didn't have the fossil fuel burning in America 100 years ago as much as we have it burning today. So as we look at the climate change and all of those things that have occurred, Charlton, it's a lot different. A lot of these wildfires, Charlton, are something that's an act of nature, that's natural. And you have to have the natural burning, and it's always occurred around the world. California is no different than those places.
Yeah, the one thing that, if there is a good thing, we've had the Napa fires, we had the fires up in Paradise about a year ago. Out of San Francisco, there's hundreds of thousands of acres of unpopulated land that continues to burn across California as of today. Dozens of lightning-sparked wildfires move throughout the very dry vegetation and then threaten the edge of some cities and towns in the state's northern and central regions. I believe even over near Santa Cruz, I believe there's a UC Santa Cruz, and there's some areas over there that by the college that they've also had to evacuate. So not only are people dealing with, homelessness, it's a massive heat wave in California. Temperatures are some places as high as 130 degrees down in Death Valley, California. But now we're dealing with COVID-19. We're dealing with kids not being able to go back to school. And now they're telling people to evacuate. Evacuate to where, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at the climate change that has occurred around the world and even in California, you think about the population of California compared to a lot of other states around the country, Charlton, and the mass amount of fires that they have. And we've talked about the atmospheric layer.
Yeah.
And you think about the fossil fuels that are born that are used in California, and that's going to affect that climate out there a lot more than it is going to affect less populated areas in the United States. But when you leave, when you look at clusters in California and the hugely populated areas of Southern California, Northern California, and the less populated areas of California, maybe they should consider going to some of those places.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will start going to those places. And one of the first persons to maybe beat them there, I know we do a lot of work in California and cover the whole world when it comes to things. But I want to just mention Donald Trump's advisor, Steve Bannon, and 3 others, they were arrested and indicted. They're talking. This is what I want to say when people say the suburban wives, be careful, and they talk about the Brown menace. Well, his ex-advisor, Steve Bannon, as well as Michael Cohen, those guys have been arrested. Paul Manafort, Rick Gates, Roger Stone, we've heard about him being released, Michael Flynn. But the latest guy is Steve Bannon, Big C. They were telling people to donate money, and they were actually supposedly taking the money to build a wall to keep out brown people. And some of these white guys, they've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar, Big C, and maybe looking at some serious time, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I like what Trump said about the ordeal today, Charlton, with his 6th cabinet advisor being arrested, since he's been elected president, is that he knew about the deal, but he didn't think it was a good idea. You're the president, and people are out there raising money for a project that can only be federally funded, not privately funded from private donations, Charlton.
Yeah.
And you're saying that you knew about the deal, and that's what gets me, is that he's saying that he knows about these deals that are going on and didn't think it was a good idea and didn't tell the guy to stop or report it.
No.
So this is what the president is. When you think about his 6 associates that have been arrested by the federal government, and not by the local sheriff, by the federal
feds.
government.
Yeah.
And he's saying it's a bad deal for the guy to get arrested.
Yeah.
So, expect Bannon not to be in there long, Charlton, because, he and William Barr will get him out before, the beginning of 2021.
Yeah.
So, when this guy, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
No, it doesn't.
And you think about having 6 associates of yours arrested on federal crimes, make it 7 because Jeffrey Epstein was one also.
Yeah.
So 7 of his close associates arrested on federal crimes, and he said he didn't know anything about what they were doing, and yet 6 of them were hired or appointed to public office.
Oh my goodness, man! I tell you, life when you don't just focus on who won a game, a football, basketball, or baseball game, you can see crooked things going on. it's amazing he still shows his head because there's some people don't read and they would never know about it. I do want to pay homage to President Obama. Again, I love class. I know Joe Biden's going to be speaking tonight. There's a guy by the name of Andrew Yang. Really love listening to him. So Joe Biden's going to speak at the Democratic Convention tonight. But what I really want to go to before we touch on some sports, you and I always talk about the Constitution. Maybe President Obama does listen to Big C Sports, Big C, because he did his speech last night, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You know, they can't get together socially, but he had a writing on the wall. It said, writing the Constitution. There's only one sports show in the universe that ever mentions the Constitution, and that's Big C Sports. And then how the universe would have it, President Obama was standing in a room with the writing of the Constitution written in red. And to me, that's just important, because I know a lot of dumb guys, they want to know, are the Lakers going to beat Portland tonight? We'll talk about that too. But before I throw it to you, and it's amazing how Bannon, maybe Obama's prescient. He's very prescient, Big C. Before Bannon got arrested today, President Obama, he rebuked Donald Trump in the birtherism garbage. Think about this. Donald Trump's friends are arrested, so many of them, it's hard to count them. Birtherism, racism, sexism. Never thought that the United States would be something that he would really occupy. He thought people were too smart to vote for him, Big C. But I'm proud of President Obama for so many things, but especially, Big C, you call a spade, you call a crook, you call a bigot. And Kamala Harris called him a predator, and he is. And I'm just proud that some people are standing up and not pretending like these things don't happen, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, President Obama chose that backdrop, Charlton, because he's a constitutional lawyer.
Yeah.
That's what he has his law degree in. And when you think about the comments that he made about the current member in the Oval Office, the guy that you helped elect, Donald Trump.
I didn't help.
Is that he could not grow. He thought that he could not grow into the job, which he is not disappointed in. He has not grown into the job.
Yeah.
He didn't really want to be president, Charlton. He wanted the notoriety.
Yeah.
He thought it was a game show that he was playing on, and that he was scoring well. And that's what it came down to. When you look at how he's handled America, he's handled it as a game show.
Yeah.
Donald Trump has not come out on any attack or plan against COVID-19. Wuhan, China is open back up, where they're saying that COVID-19 came from. These people are back in the streets. They're not practicing social distancing, Charlton. They're living life as normal. And yet we're sitting here in this country without any direction. We have schools opening up and kids catching COVID-19 left and right.
Crazy.
And he's saying, well, they'll be okay.
Yeah.
Yet he will not send his kid to a public school.
Yeah.
Everybody right now is attacking the Democrats. You think about that from a Republican perspective. You're spending your time attacking the Democratic nominee for president more so than you are caring about the health and needs of American families and citizens.
Yeah.
Yesterday we talked about, he signed this executive order a couple of weeks ago for Americans to receive a new stimulus on unemployment. Only 11 states received that, Charlton. Those states are states that he's trying to win.
The swing states.
Those are those states, and I can't remember the name. It's off the top of my head
swing
right now.
States? Yeah.
The states that are in play as far as deciding the electoral college.
Yeah.
So he decided that those 11 states, swing states, would get the unemployment money, and the other 39 states would not get it. So you think about a president that's only thinking about his only self-interest. And so anything that former President Obama would say would be accurate. And it was very accurate and articulate.
Yeah.
And he was like a child sitting up listening to President Obama speak last night, because President Obama lives rent-free inside of his head every day.
Yeah,
that's
funny.
Like a little teenager.
Yeah.
Because he was mad,
Yeah.
So he's going to tweet out to his listeners about what Obama was saying.
Yeah.
Just being childish, not a grown-up.
Well,
childish. And you need a grown-up in the White House.
You need to grow up in any house, Big C. It's all fair and love and war. But I just appreciate President Obama not being a guy with his head between his tail, and really, when somebody smacks you, smack them back. Don't sit there and say, well, I don't want to criticize another president, and Donald Trump calls all that birtherism garbage. And I just hate the fact that it happened, but I'm proud to see President Obama standing up for himself. I want to touch on a couple of things that are happening in the world of sports. And I know everybody's happy about things that are going on in this NBA basketball bubble, and that's fine too. But I want to get on something, because in college football, Georgia State they have a quarterback who has a heart condition that's linked to COVID-19, even while the ACC and the Big 12, as well as the SEC, they want to put more young players in harm's way. Now, the thing that really catches my attention about this, I think you're one of the first persons, along with some of the other medical doctors, that talked about athletes and heart conditions. And here's a player down at Georgia State has a heart condition that could be linked to COVID-19, but then you have parents saying they want to beat up the guy, the commissioner of the Big Ten Conference, guys from Iowa, saying they want to talk to him about fighting him if he won't let the kids play football. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, Charlton, it's something I've constantly told you. You keep saying that people recover from COVID-19. They don't recover. They survive. There's a difference between recovery and survival, and I've said this to you for weeks on weeks, and you keep saying they'll be okay. No, they won't. Here's a young man that's a college quarterback who has a heart condition. We already know that there were 5 players in the Big Ten that has those similar conditions, Charlton, the reason why the conference canceled college football. So this is something you have to look at. And you think about Georgia State in the city of Atlanta, and Georgia Tech is also in that same city. I think they're about 5 miles apart, these two campuses, from each other. So, I mean, I'm going to think that kids on both of these campuses grew up with each other in that greater Atlanta area and played growing up against each other. So if it's 5 miles away on one campus, I don't think it takes that far to travel down a freeway to another campus, Charlton. So as we look at Georgia Tech in the ACC, and I'm not sure what conference Georgia State is in, but these conferences, Charlton, have to look out for the greater health of these kids. And so, right now, I put the pressure on broadcasting companies. Not the universities, Charlton, on the broadcasting companies. The broadcasting companies are aiding and abetting the health risk for these young men. Because if you don't broadcast the games, then there's nobody going to be there, Charlton, because they've already stated that they're not going to have fans in a lot of these stadiums. So these broadcast companies right now that say they're going to broadcast these football games are aiding and abetting the health risk of these young men.
I always put the onus on the person that has the brain. If a person can read, they know it's dumb to play. Now, Georgia State, ironically, with all the other schools and the guys up in Iowa, there's some parents that want to meet with the commissioner of the Big Ten. I guess they want to fist fight him so they can get their kids out there. But this is ironic, Big C, because Georgia State said it could not comment on the health of individual student athletes because of privacy laws. But the university did say that its medical staff regularly reviews the latest information and the recommendations from the Centers for Disease Control, etc. Now, if they can't tell you a person's name because that's a HIPAA violation, but they can say that X number of kids from a school has had that problem with COVID-19, but they're always looking for a way to say, just like the evacuation of fires in California, it's not going to affect everybody. Let's just play while the fire's burning. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I don't know if these parents realize, but these universities have the option at any point that they want to pull the athletic scholarship of a student athlete. There's no guarantee, just like an NFL contract. It's not guaranteed. So it's up to the discretion of the university. They can come up with any violation that they want to pull that athletic scholarship of that child with conduct, unbecoming. And that's what's going to happen with a lot of these athletes. They can come up and say conduct unbecoming. We're going to pull your scholarship. So these athletes need to understand, if you're in school about getting an education, spend a semester getting your education. Get your GPA up because you're not going to be distracted from going to football practice. Get on the dean's list for once in your life.
I mean, sometimes we know that it's hard to make every academic requirement when you're forced to play football, practice 6 hours a day. I want to take it also and stay down south, because this, to me, at some point in time, each parent has to look at their own situation. In the SEC again, Big C, there's a player at the University of Florida. And at first he said he didn't want to play because of fears of COVID-19. And his parents actually have a friend that had passed away from COVID-19. So he had said he wasn't going to play because he saw the realism of what's happened. And he's a defensive player by the name of Zach Carter. Now he says he plans to play, and he's going to, listen to this, he says he's going to dedicate the season to those affected by COVID-19. Like, how do you do that? He missed the opening days of fall camp while considering skipping the season because of the virus. and he's had an outspoken person. If they have a thing called #WeAreUnited. It was started by the Pac-12 players, but it's a shame because he said that he had his dad and his mother. They had a friend that lost a battle to COVID-19, 29-year-old person, and a true Gator fan. And how's he going to pay homage to her? That doesn't make any sense. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, we've lost over 170,000 Americans to COVID-19 thus far. And the numbers are rising every day by 1,000 in America.
Yeah.
So he's going to have a lot of tape and a lot of Sharpies to write those names down, Charlton, if he's dedicated. And I'm not being flippant or insensitive in this situation. But for someone to use the loss of life in America, saying that I'm dedicating my season to them, that lets you know that the season is really not, the loss of life is not important to you in America.
Yeah.
And you're not concerned about the science. So as we look at that, you can't dedicate enough to the American citizens that we have lost thus far and still going to lose because this president doesn't give a damn. Why don't he dedicate every day to the loss of life in America and find a way to help us stem the tide of COVID-19? Your president, Donald Trump.
Well, if you're waiting on the president, you may as well wait on the lottery, Big C. It's a very rare chance that people win that. But I did want to say Florida Gators coach Dan Mullen, he said Thursday he had not spoken to Carter recently and was not aware of his intentions to play. Mullen said that this week he says he would not be surprised if players or assistant coaches opted out of the season because of health concerns. So I really feel it's like anybody else. We are all, I don't want to say we because kids can be influenced by adults. So I never want to tell the kids that they have the same power that someone that's going to influence them, that maybe they'll become rich someday or get a Ferrari if they play for them. But Mullen, instead of saying we're going to follow science, he's down there with the governor of Florida saying, hey, we just, whatever they do, we're gonna hope that we can keep them safe, and it's just not going to happen. I don't know what else to say. If you as a parent or as a player don't understand how difficult it is to go out in that environment, then what else can you do, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I'd love to see the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, go out to a practice at the University of Florida, Florida State, Central Florida, any one of those major Florida universities, Charlton, and be a water boy one day without a face mask on.
Yeah.
Go out there and take the risk that you're asking these athletes to take, saying that it's safe, that they can go out and play college sports, and it's not a health hazard to them, Charlton. Let the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, who is forcing the schools to go back open and all of those things, go out there and put his health at risk.
Yeah, we know it's each and they may say, hey, jump off of that cliff, and people can decide to jump if they want to jump or not. I want to tell you, and we talked about it yesterday, you talked about Tobacco Road, man. At California, there's so much smoke in the air, it really feels like you stink. I don't know how people smoke cigarettes, but it's really bad right now. And
isn't weed legal in
no,
California
it's not.
As well as cigarettes?
It's not that kind of. Maybe they are burning farms, but it's not that kind of smell. It smells like burning trash. It's just like it's really bad smell, Big C. Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Believe it or not, North Carolina athletics, they made a decision to suspend activities for one day in response to a double positive test of COVID-19 on the campus. And I just wonder, what is that magical number? There has to be a magical number before people say, I'm getting out of here. Like they're telling people in California, listen up because you may have to evacuate I think they're trying to evacuate UC Santa Cruz. Those are kids. Some of those kids come from all over the country. But when you evacuate, where do you go, Big C? So now North Carolina, they're saying they're going to suspend for one day because they're having a COVID-19 outbreak, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you're talking about suspending athletics for one day, and yet you sent students off campus.
Yeah, they have.
Telling them that it's not safe to be on campus.
Yeah.
But you're willing to risk the health and welfare of the athletes on campus.
Yeah.
This is all about economics. And like I said, yes, you got people on the university making this decision, but who are they making the decision for, Charlton? They're making the decision for the broadcast company. If you cannot have butts in the seat, where are you going to get your revenue from? Broadcast company.
Yeah. Well, Big C, I believe they would play anyway because it's not them. It's just these young boys. And I really hate when they're African-American boys because those guys are most likely to not get a job ever with that university once they're playing eligibility is up unless they're going to be a security guard. Don't get those white kids out there, make them coaches, and help them out in the private sector. And to me, I hate that. University of Mississippi, they received notice today that 13 students and student athletes and one employee had tested positive for COVID-19. Just like in California, they're saying you may have to evacuate because it's dangerous to stay in it where there's burning fire, Big C. They're not trying to treat COVID-19 the same, though, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I'm curious. You say 13 student athletes, so that means football players.
Yeah.
So they're at football practice. So those 13 football players only came in contact with each other. That's basically what they're saying in this statement.
Yeah.
Is that they didn't come in contact with the other 100 football players out there and other staffers that are around the field, Charlton. The water boys and girls and the trainers and all of those people. So as we look at these statements, these loose statements that are coming out from these universities, wanting people to think that it's minimized as far as people being exposed and contacting COVID-19, Charlton, it's straight up lying about it. I mean, it might as be Donald Trump giving a statement about the student athletes that are coming down with COVID-19. And, well, only one or two came down with it, and they weren't around the other 100 teammates.
Yeah. You know, the same thing when we talk about doctors getting involved, it's nice when doctors do. There's an NCAA chief medical officer. He says if testing in the United States stays as it is, there's no way that we can go forward with sports as college football conferences continues to make decisions on whether football will be played in the fall. He's an NCAA chief medical officer. His name is Brian Hanline, Big C, and he talked about the sports cannot be played safely without proper COVID-19 testing. But again, the thing about the fires in California, they're just saying be prepared to evacuate. They don't say, well, try to live and stay in the fire zone anyway. They're telling people you got to leave. COVID-19 is just like with the fires. We all can see the results of it. 170+ thousand people lost their lives to COVID-19 under Donald Trump's presidency, Big C, and those numbers are counting under Donald Trump's presidency. But when you have a medical chief officer saying that we cannot play without proper testing, why don't they just cancel until the spring or fall of next year, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, there's no way you can have proper testing in college football. You look at an NFL team, it's going to cost each NFL team to play the season if they can get through it without an overrun of COVID-19.
Yeah.
$20 to $25 million each. Now, you think about a lot of these universities saying, okay, we're not investing $25 million in these college athletes. And you got to understand it probably would be even higher because a college roster probably has twice as many players on the field and on the sideline as an NFL roster, Charlton. These teams have upwards of 100 and more players in a lot of situations. So that means you're going to have to test all of these players 3 times a week, where the NCAA has said they would test 1 time a week on Thursday and let them, get sick other days other than that.
Yeah.
So as you look at proper testing, as the chief medical officer states, you're not doing it right. And this is what parents are not understanding when they want to go talk to an athletic director or a conference commissioner. Why are you canceling college football? Because we can't test. And if your son comes up with COVID-19 and ends up in the hospital on a respirator, you're going to want to sue us. You're not going to sit there and sign a waiver to say that your son can play college football. As a matter of fact, we don't even want to take that chance of putting his life in that peril.
No, they don't want. You would think they would want to, Big C. Before we come up on the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout, people have to put it in their own hands. Just like they're saying all over television. Yesterday, the sky was like it was orange. And you could see, I haven't seen it this bad in a long time. This wasn't even as bad as I think the Napa fires were really historically bad in California, but this might be worse. It just doesn't seem like there's any end in sight for it, but I know eventually they'll get it under control if we get some type of help from the weather. But the NCAA Alabama, another SEC conference, they're saying it's crazy. They're closing campuses to say we're only going to teach online, and because they let people come back in, they had the outbreaks. Now Alabama, of all places, at Bryant-Denny Stadium, they're saying they're going to allow 20% capacity to be in compliance with the Center for Disease Control and the state public health guidelines. How many universities will really follow these guidelines? They've already had outbreaks with people just getting back on campus, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, we talked earlier in the week, Charlton. I believe the University of Auburn had some 33, 34 players test positive for COVID-19.
Yeah.
We know that Alabama had a huge outbreak 2 months ago there at the stadium with workers and players, Charlton.
Yeah.
And the state of Alabama is at a record high as far as positive cases and deaths. So, how are you going to keep anything safe? And the thing that I look at, you talk about you're going to allow 20% capacity in a stadium during the season. Who's the 20% that you're allowing in, Charlton?
Yeah.
Do they have to take a COVID-19 testing coming in? Because they're going to be somewhere in the proximity of players when they're warming up or even during the game.
Yeah.
And so there's always going to be a possibility of them transmitting COVID-19.
Yeah, it just seems like they don't really care. But we know that if it's always easier to volunteer someone else to go off to war. They did that in the Vietnam War. The men who made the decision to go to war, they weren't the ones going to have to fight the battles Big C. We're going to take what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about what's going on in the world of sports. And I really love the fact that all of Donald Trump's friends are going to jail. Remember he said, lock her up, lock her up? It's amazing now they're locking up his friends, Big C. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on so many apps that I really appreciate, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports podcast. I was talking with you so many times about how we look at getting, as you always say, who's in the room when they make decisions. Well, the NCAA, the Pac-12 conference, Big C, they always think that if we get another athlete in place, then it's going to make things better. The Pac-12, they hire ex-San Francisco 49er Merton Hanks to help with football operations, and I guess they realized that if we get another former football player in, a guy who actually got paid to play, that maybe he's going to convince some of these kids to play. Merton Hanks was a good football player, but they've hired him to bring him in to do what? He's not a lawyer. They need to have lawyers, not former athletes. Larry Scott trying to convince more people to play. Big, so your thoughts?
Well, the hiring of Merton Hanks is that he's there to just oversee football operations only. The job that he took with the Pac-12 is the same job that he held in the NFL office. So he brings experience to the table of what the Pac-12 was trying to accomplish, Charlton. We saw where the players were wanting to demand 50% of the revenue from the conference to play this year. He's there to oversee the business of football and finance.
Yeah.
And that's what every conference in America needs. They need someone to oversee just that for football as well as basketball because they're huge revenue-generating sports.
Yeah, he played at the University of Iowa. And ironically, Iowa has parents that want to fight. They want to get into a fist fight with the Big Ten commissioner for whatever reason. But my only thinking is, in this COVID-19 world of sports, we got to be flexible, of course, and they want to be innovative, and you have to mitigate the risk, but at the same time, we're going to provide the first-class experience for student-athletes. That's what Larry Scott's doing. I appreciate they're bringing in Merton Hanks, but I really, at this time, when the California is burning, they're not bringing in former football players. They're bringing in fire departments from all over the western United States because they're the ones who are experienced with saving lives. They're not bringing in athletes to talk about how to survive a forest fire or a grass fire. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that's an act of nature. What we're dealing with COVID-19 and the suspension of football in the Pac-12 is that they have to get all their ducks in a row when they do start back up. Remember, California has passed the bill saying that student athletes can make money off their name and likeness once they start performing after the 2021 season.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that they figure it out. With Big C Sports, it is so hot today. This might have been, I feel like it's a sauna in California just because the smoke is so bad. Big C Sports, we still want to be sexy. We want to be clever. We want to be engaging. We want to be bold. We want to be funny. We want to be thoughtful. And we really want to be provocative. If you're doing something and it feels good and you want some more, just Google it. Really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. I want to touch on something in the world of baseball. And I know, again, that sometimes if you hear the same story too many times, you might think, okay, it's just another story. People get numb to it. But I don't think you can get numb to things that are real. Major League Baseball, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Their president tests positive for COVID-19. And people, the good and bad thing about announcing that, Big C, people need to know what's going on. Just like they talk about the fires in California, so you can know what to do. But at the same time, the more people test positive and they come out of it and you see them on the field playing again, I think people don't look at the seriousness of it. But his name is Travis Williams, tested positive for COVID-19 today. And I know a lot of baseball games have already been canceled for players. Last I recall, presidents of teams are not playing against each other, but they're coming down with it too, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's about being exposed to it. It doesn't make any difference who you are or what position you have. You're being exposed to it. It doesn't always take being on the playing field, being exposed to it. We've had people catch COVID-19 in private life, the majority of Americans. So you have to be protected wherever you go. You can't be brazen enough where you don't put on a safeguard to protect yourself, Charlton.
Yeah.
And you got to realize he let his guard down, most likely.
Yeah, he may have let his guard down. But again, it's like a virus. We can wear masks. The thing I am grateful for is I see most people, at least in California, wear the mask. And I know when I think about it, how Donald Trump and President Obama talked about it last night, as well as Kamala Harris, the next vice president of the United States, how he's reckless because science has told everybody to prepare for what's happening right now. Whether you're a student athlete, whether you're an elementary kid, Big C, whether you're a first responder, Congress, they've been arguing about whatever they want to argue about. But the president, when he speaks, he's supposed to have credibility. But he's told people you don't need a mask. And look at how many people have suffered. Baseball Hall of Famer Cal Ripken Jr., he said he's cancer-free now. Thank God for that. Baltimore Orioles Hall of Famer Cal Ripken Jr., he's made a full recovery from prostate cancer. I think that's something that, as you and I always try to but tell people, get your health checkups. And the reason that he's alive today is because he was getting his checkups. He was getting his screenings. And with medical science, a lot of things can be overcome today. But I really appreciate it. I think he's 60 years old next week. He's only 59. And I'm just happy that he got his checkups. And I hope that more men and women will keep getting their checkups, Big. So your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he has insurance. He has health insurance. All Americans are not privy to have health insurance. As you see the current administration trying to abolish Obamacare. That's one of the things about being a former professional athlete is that you, and especially with baseball, is that you have lifetime health insurance. And so that's the plus with Cal Ripken Jr. is that he has access to what a lot of Americans don't.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have access to medical, and they don't go either. There's still some people who have access to medical care, Big C, and they don't go get their screenings, and they should.
But we have more Americans that have no access to health insurance, that don't have health insurance, versus those who do have health insurance. So that's the plus. He has that option to go or not go. Those people who don't have access to health insurance, Charlton, when you arrive at the hospital or a doctor's office, they say, who's your insurance carrier? I don't have one. They don't help you, Charlton. So that's the difference. I mean, it's great that Cal Ripken has beat prostate cancer, Charlton, but he had health insurance that allowed him to do that.
Yep, that's very well said. So everybody, if you get it, if you can't get insurance, I don't know what the answer for you. That's why you got to vote. And when someone's trying to get rid of health care, you got to ask yourself, how does that keep people alive? That's Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell. They're trying to do that right now. And they're talking about people of color moving into your neighborhoods. No, it's other things that we got to be careful of. I want to bring up this issue because down in the South, you know, we're having forest fires and wildfires in California. When I look at Jackson, Mississippi, University of Mississippi, sometimes you forget about these things. I know POTUS made it a federal crime to desecrate a Confederate statue or a Confederate flag because he really loves the Confederacy, Big C. But the relocated rebel statue causes concerns at Ole Miss University. And a lot of the players saying this Confederate monument at football players say they don't want to see it. They don't want to see anything that resembles the rebel soldiers, Big C, especially while they were going to that college. And so they've moved it over to a cemetery, but it's still in sight of a plane surface. I always feel like the South, and I might be wrong because I never lived there, but they're always trying to remind players, why not put that garbage in a museum? They put it up where people can see it when they go pay respect to their loved ones. They didn't put it in a museum, and they're telling the players, so what? Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, the nation has always reminded Negroes that the Confederacy existed. You have to understand that all these Confederate statues in America were put up after 1912. Okay, they weren't put up after the Civil War. They were put up after 1912. So many of these statues being erected, Charlton, are less than 100 years old around America, not just in Mississippi, all around America. They were always put up above black people, just like when you were a slave. You had to keep your head bowed down. You couldn't get above the white master, Charlton. And so all of these things were put up for intimidation. And so as these universities and these cities constantly talked about, keeping these statues erect, Charlton, they deserve to be someplace in the back room. Go put them out on the white side of town someplace.
Yeah. I mean, they won't do that. University of Mississippi was founded in 1848, and that soldier statue was actually put up in 1906, Big C, and it's near the main administration building. It was one of...
So when was the Civil War, Charlton?
When
was the Civil War? We talked about the University of Mississippi. When was it formed?
In 1848.
Okay.
But
the Civil War was in 1860, wasn't it?
Yeah, but still, they're...
So think about this. This was put up in the next century after the Civil War, after the South had already lost, Charlton, after they had lost. So everything that was a symbolic of the South, prior to the Civil War, should have been abolished, just like the South and the Confederate flag was at that time, Charlton. That it was the United States of America, and you couldn't put up anything that was against the United States of America. That's how it should be today. If you have any statues up against people who fought against the United States of America, they don't have Vietnamese statues in America. They don't have North Korea statues in America, Charlton. They don't have Germany statues in America, Charlton. So why in the hell do you have these damn rebel statues all up over America of these Confederate traitors, Charlton? Not people who fought for the country, people who tried to destroy the country. They're damn traitors. And you got monuments to them all over this country, and people are celebrating them and fighting to keep them erect, as your President Donald Trump is.
Well, they had Civil War from 1861 to 1865, but I'm a little bit different than you, Big C. I wouldn't patron a restaurant that said no people of color allowed. I wouldn't sit there and keep complaining. Why they got the sign up? Why do you go to those universities? The people choose to go to those universities. To me, it's dumb, but some people do dumb things, and they can't keep blaming the oppressor when you willingly go to make the oppressor a multi-millionaire. That's the way I think about it. And speaking of something that I think is so important, we talked about it yesterday with the Golden State Warriors and Toronto Raptors, NCAA basketball, actually NBA basketball. Toronto Raptors president Masai Ujiri, he sues Alameda County Sheriff Alan Strickland after videos showed that it was the white sheriff, that physically assaulted a black man, and it was Alameda County Sheriff's Department that stood on the side of the white sheriff, and they had video evidence that he was lying. It reminds me of what happened, not to the same extent, but in the Rodney King trial when they had the videotape of multiple officers beating a man as if he was a piece of, trash on the road, Big C. They were beating him like a carpet, and they still said, the jury said, not guilty. We don't see anything wrong. But I'm proud that your jury is suing back. Of course, he has the money to sue. But also, when it comes out, sometimes people say, well, just turn the other cheek. You're a rich man. But no, he's standing up for other people who, just like the guys without insurance, they cannot turn the other cheek. They don't have the money to turn the other cheek. I'm proud that he's suing back, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, what allows him to do that, Charlton, is that he has the economic background to be able to sue back. That is the difference. What we saw happen to Missouri, we've seen happen to hundreds and hundreds of young black men across America, Charlton. But they did not have the financial wherewithal, nor did they have the professional organization to back them up.
Yeah.
That is the biggest difference. Economics allows you to do things. Not your color, not because he's the president of the Toronto Raptors, not because he's black, but because he's the president of the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah.
Because he is a millionaire. It allows and affords him the ability, Charlton, to get proper legal representatives.
Yeah.
Affordable legal representatives to go out and challenge this situation. Because without the financial wherewithal, regardless of you suing somebody, means nothing. You think Rodney King didn't sue L.A.? You think everybody didn't see that? Rodney King didn't have the financial wherewithal of Masai Ujiri in Toronto. It is a different world, Charlton, when you have finance. Everybody talks about O.J.'s case.
Yeah.
O.J. got white justice because he had white money.
Yeah.
So he got off because of that. It comes down to your economic value, Charlton, when it comes down to suing somebody.
Yeah.
If you think about Alameda, they had endless pockets because they have a thing called the DA that
Yeah.
works for them.
Yeah.
Okay? That's what this officer was hoping for.
Yeah.
Is that he could get the taxpayers to pay his bill.
And they were going
He
to.
knew a man that was a millionaire that he knew was a millionaire, and he wasn't going to work again the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Now he won't have a job, and he's going to lose his house.
No, he's going to have a job. You got to understand, some good old boys will give him.
No, he's already filed, Charlton, that he cannot work, that he is mentally and physically unable to work. So he's filed for workman's comp. Now, he's going to go to jail for fraud if he tries to go back to work because he's accepted workman's comp.
Well, he will get a job once he gets out of jail. Just like Donald Trump's friend, those guys get jobs too when they get out of jail. I do want to say that Ujiri's countersuit, it does include, the man's very well connected. It includes the Toronto Raptors of the NBA, the Maple Leafs, and Sports and Entertainment as plaintiffs, and states that Strickland's falsified the encounter. And this is what Donald Trump is saying to white, what do you call them, suburban wives? I think he calls them suburban wives. He doesn't say white ladies, but he calls them suburban housewives, okay? Strickland falsified the encounter and attempted to portray Ujiri as the initial aggressor and an inherently violent individual. You know how they say black people are violent, Big C, if we speak our minds, but Donald Trump and his friends who are all going to jail, they don't call white men violent. I just had an epiphany. Why aren't any of Donald Trump's white friends called violent when they're stealing money from even his donors? They're stealing money to lock up brown people behind a wall. You notice they don't call white men who commit crimes violent. They'll just say they committed an act of crime, but they don't call them violent. Big C, your thoughts?
You ever wonder where the term white-collar crime comes from, Charlton? It's a dog whistle to say that white people are allowed to just commit these crimes, that they're not violent.
Yeah, it's a shame, but I'm glad that you have people stand up for themselves, and to see that's really important. I want to also bring up something. There's something about the court. I mean, there are times when you go to court because you've been done wrong, and you get a chance to prove if you're guilty or innocent, and sometimes it's left up to a judge or a jury. We have a story coming out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Hall of Fame running back Jerome Bettis played his football at Notre Dame University back in the day. I think he played back I believe they won I played for a national championship. I don't think they won it. But at the same time, he files a racial discrimination lawsuit. Hall of Fame running back Jerome Bettis filed a racial discrimination lawsuit against a Pittsburgh company that he had promoted for its commitment to diversity. You know, the commitment to diversity that Donald Trump talks about, diversifying his white friends, not people of color. The lawsuit was filed in U.S. District Court in Pennsylvania's Western District. It cites a breach of contract. He's seeking $66 million in damages. And the thing that I think is so important that people got to understand is this trucking company, the money was dropped in a commitment to use minority-owned businesses. That's why Bettis signed up to let him use his name and representation. But once they got his name and representation, they're denying to give business opportunities to minority-owned businesses. Big C, your thoughts?
Welcome to America, Charlton. This happens every day.
Yeah, it may happen every day, but I want to get your thoughts on what's happening lately. Is lawsuits happen every day. But fortunately, like I always say, sue people. I don't care if you're broke. They got pro bono attorneys that will take on a case if you can win. You're hearing about black men that are not crying. They're not begging someone to please give me opportunity. They're not saying, please give me the Rooney Rule. Please be nice to me. They're going to the courts and they're suing and making it a court of law, not that someone has a good heart to make things better. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it comes down to evidentiary and discovery, Charlton, in this scenario. We understand throughout the history of America that blacks have been denied the opportunity to obtain. No different in this lawsuit, Charlton. But it's going to come down to what they can prove in this lawsuit. Anybody can file a lawsuit as long as you can hire a lawyer and have enough money to enact that action, Charlton.
Yeah.
But it's going to come down to what they can prove. I can't prove anything about the lawsuit. I don't know anything about the lawsuit. But as you look at this scenario, Charlton, suing happens every day in America.
Yeah.
It's what can you prove that they denied individuals or companies, Charlton, and then they got to come up with counter evidence contrary to what you're suing about.
Yeah. Well, that's fine, but I want people to know, just like there's over 120 black women that are running for congressional districts, and people say, what about this Black Lives Matter thing? The NBA, they have Black Lives Matter written on the basketball court, and they have Black Lives Matters and justice, and there's nothing wrong with that on the back of people's T-shirts. But if you don't go to the courts, then you're wasting your time. And I'm proud of people that are using the court to make things better. Instead of marching and crying and begging, don't march, cry, and beg anymore. If you feel you've been aggrieved, there are law firms that will look at your case. If they feel you have merit, they will take in that case. And that's why I'm proud of Jerome Bettis doing what he's done, Big C. But I want to ask you, even with the Jerome Bettis, people think he's a football player. Why does he need money? It's about right and wrong. Americans care more about football than anything else, probably, because of, I think it was 2019. Would you believe that 41 of the top 50 rated TV programs, they were NFL games, and 2 of the others that were not even being NFL games, they were college games, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, that's where America is. I know you always say that sports will bring people together.
It does.
But you also got to realize the days when those football games are being played, when the majority of Americans are off work. When you think about Monday through Friday jobs, and when you think about football, mainly it's played, you know, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, especially Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, when it controls the airwaves on Sunday, that's basically all it's on. Is NFL football from 10 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. It's NFL football.
Yeah.
So people are getting an overload of it. It's hard to avoid it. You got Monday night football also,
Yeah.
where you have a captivative audience. You got Thursday night football also, where you have a captivating audience. And you know that every game in the NFL matters.
Yeah.
And especially the games that are broadcast on television, they really matter in a conference race versus a TV series that's going to be on, and they're going to replay it again in the second half of the year.
Yeah.
But NFL has been that way. When you took Sunday away from God, that meant you had power.
Yeah.
The ultimate power.
Yeah.
And so the NFL is going to control the TV airwaves. We talked earlier in the program, Charlton, I told you that when you look at television, they are a co-conspirator in getting those college athletes out there to play. You said 2 of the programs, they were in the top 50 were college games that were played.
Yep.
41 of the top 50 were NFL games being played.
Yeah.
So without butts in the seats, they know that's where their main money comes from. We talked about $1.2 billion would be lost to colleges, Charlton, if they did not play college football this year.
Yeah.
So it's not about anything other than the money and the co-conspirator that's called broadcast company
Yeah.
in keeping players out on the field.
Yeah. Well, everybody has a right to play and a right to read and a right not to, and I'm glad that people are reading and using the court system. Like Kamala Harris, the reason she'll be a fabulous first, vice president of the United States, she understands the law, and she's been an attorney general in California. They didn't march and beg and plead for anything. They take you to court if you do things wrong. She sued banks in the country also. I want to touch on the NBA, and tonight it's just so hot in California. The Miami Heat, they were hot also, Big C. They got a win in their game, and also I know everybody's talking about who's going to play, who's going to win this series. Miami beat Indiana. Milwaukee got back on, they got back on top of the things. Milwaukee with a win over Orlando, Big C. Houston, surprisingly, James Harden didn't score 90 points, but they got a win over OKC. The game tonight, the Portland Trailblazers and the LA Lakers. I'm going to go on a limb. California's burning, Big C, and I think the locker room in the LA Lakers is burning too. If you guys are shooting 5 for 32 and 3-point baskets, you're going to lose again. If they want to win this game, they got to go to the basket, get the basket in the foul, and that's my opinion, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, if they want to win this game, they just got to get a lot of help from the officials, not just going to the basket, y'all. But the Los Angeles Lakers cannot shoot with the Portland Trailblazers. And you got to have a mindset to want to play an inside game. You got to understand Portland has big.
Yeah.
So they're not intimidated by by Los Angeles. They're actually larger inside than what Los Angeles is. So it's very difficult for the Lakers to get to the basket against them. So, right now they're playing with house money in Portland. The Lakers right now are scrambling.
Well, everybody's scrambling, and I think that Portland's been playing as well as anybody. And if Portland's going to win, they got to keep shooting the lights out on the outside. But for the Lakers, they got to go inside. Portland doesn't have to go inside as much, but the Lakers' strength is going inside. We'll see if they make those adjustments tonight. There was supposed to be a game, baseball's trying to do its thing to it. It's squeaking along, Big C. But there was a game tonight, the New York Mets and the Marlins, been postponed after 2 New York members tested positive for COVID-19. Big C, your thoughts?
Welcome to baseball 2020, Charles. This has become a weekly notation in the MLB is that teams are testing positive for COVID-19, and once again, we have canceled games. Yeah,
they canceled games. I don't think people really look at how serious it could be. We have the NHL and the playoffs. Tampa Bay Lightning, they advanced to the semifinals up in Canada. WNBA, Candace Parker, she sparks. I don't want to say sparks in California. Too many flames sparking, but she powers the Sparks to the. She's got over 5,500 points. That's a milestone for her. So really, really proud of her. But the last story I want to cover, we may cover 2 more. I know, just like you and I, we say things and sometimes we may make a mistake. Say, hey, I beg your pardon, or we'll come back and say I misspoke something, etc. But it's hard to fathom how dumb a broadcaster was. Tom Brenneman last night, the Reds play-by-play announcer, who got into the business because of nepotism with his father. He casually dropped a huge homophobic slur on the air without realizing that his mics were hot, saying this was one of the biggest, blank cities in America. And a lot of people, when I say let there be light, sometimes, just like the light when the microphone's on, people say what they really feel. He may come out and say, hey, forgive me, I said something stupid, but that could not have been the first time that he had that feeling in his heart about people. Big C, your thoughts?
No, I mean, Tom Brenneman spoke itself. I mean, this always happens. I mean, I think one of your broadcasters did it, a couple of years ago when the NFL was kneeling, and he said, I'm so damn tired of this kneeling crap.
That was Jim Nantz. Your friend Jim Nantz.
I mean, what he did last night in the Cincinnati broadcast, he said that Cincinnati was one of the biggest FAG cities in America, on television, on a live mic. And I'm proud of Fox. This is the one time I'm proud of Fox Broadcasting.
Yeah.
They came and took him off the air during the 5th inning.
Yeah.
The 5th inning of the game, they took him off the air. His butt is done in broadcasting, and it should be. When you want to denigrate American citizens like the president has, that shows us that you're a backing of them, and everybody doesn't have the autonomy to denigrate people like he does because of his office that he holds. You're just a layman citizen. So Tom Brenneman and any other broadcaster who wants to denigrate any social structure of people in America, good riddance.
Yeah.
Be gone.
Yeah, be gone. But he'll get a job back in a couple of years. It just works out that way. I wanna close out today's show, and with golf. Tiger Woods over in Boston area, Norton, Massachusetts. He shot a 68 in the first round. Here's a guy that's been struggling just to go even par, but he shot a 68, so he's off to a good start at the Northern Trust, the first event of the 3-week FedEx Cup playoffs. But with so many things going on in sports, I thought when they had the TPC Hardin in San Francisco last weekend, it was nice to see a lot of good golf being played. A lot of guys were competing for that championship. But now Tiger's maybe getting back in the swing of thing. But this is like the only time, maybe because so much is going on, I'm not really turned on by watching golfers get out there and swing around. I'm more turned on by basketball. At least basketball is fast-paced, it's up and down the court. But again, congratulations to Tiger shooting a 68. Would that make you want to watch this weekend, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Tiger shot a 16 in his last 2 rounds of golf, Charlton, but he's still 5 shots off the lead.
Yeah.
I mean, until he shoots that 63, it's not going to gravitate me to television.
Yeah.
And look at the NBA as it's being played right now. It reminds me of what March Madness is.
Yeah.
When you're playing basketball games during the day, Charlton, if you have a job this time of the year in America, you're not able to watch. And I mean, it's hard to spark the interest of the average individual, and this is the reason why the ratings are down, because Americans are not used to watching NBA games at 12 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, and as far as ratings being down, my goodness, we got COVID-19. It's a heat wave in California. California's burning. It's the largest state in the union. There's a lot of things going on that people who read don't have time to just sit around watching sports all day, even though I do love the sports business. And I really hope the firefighters can get things under control here in California and all over the western United States. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I would love for these three major Power 5 conferences to smart up and not put these young men at risk. I would love for television to say we're no longer going to aid and abet in this experiment of young men in America, Charlton. I also want to thank the frontline healthcare workers, nurses, doctors, first responders. You do a marvelous job every day. Stay strong, stay safe.
Stay strong and stay safe. And you can stay strong and stay safe too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.